Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It's your guy, Boulanger. This is the Around the League segment. And in this video, we're going to be talking about pre-draft AFC contenders, pretenders, and those other guys. Let's go. Do me a quick favor before we get started. Hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can keep getting new content as we upload new videos. So you guys know that every off season, a fan kind of reflects on what happened the previous season. And, we always kind of consider what should have happened, what could have happened, and if the ball had just bounced the other way, how things would have turned out for our team. And so a level of excitement grows when free agency happens, especially if our team is able to go out and add a few players that upgrade positions of need. And also if our team is able to, maintain our guys, right? And so then, as after free agency, kind of subsides, then what begins to happen, we turn our attention to the NFL draft. And what happens in the NFL draft, uh, we get excited about, whatever new player we can add, to depth or kind of a plug and play guy. So it creates an excitement. And so then we begin to assume that this year is our year, right? And so what we're going to do is take a pre-draft assessment of contenders, pretenders, and those other guys and kind of where the AFC teams are, okay? So give me a quick second. I want to share my screen with you guys, and we'll get this thing underway. And by all means, as you guys are listening to my selections, shoot, put your own list together and submit them in the comment section, or you can send it to the general manager .23@gmail.com. Again, the general manager .23@gmail.com, and maybe we'll get those out via video before the NFL draft. Okay, so a contender, there's a baseline for a contender, and that is a team had to make the playoffs last year, meaning they were one of the top 7 teams out of the 16 AFC teams. Okay, that's a criteria. All right, and so when we get to the contender list, that is the baseline for it. So let's look at some teams that are in those other guy category. Okay, first up, we got the New England Patriots. As we know, the Patriots kind of ruled the AFC for about 20 years in the Tom Brady era. And, they captured, several championships. They were always in contention, but they've kind of fallen down a little bit since Tom Brady left, which is to be expected. And so, it's kind of exciting to put them on those other guys because I don't think they really have a chance of winning no matter what they've done in free agency, and they have not done that much. The New England Patriots have questions about their quarterback. They're unsure if Mac Jones is the guy. And anytime you got questions about your quarterback, you really can't be a playoff team, or even, and you definitely couldn't be a contender. So the Patriots is on those other guys list. I got the Chargers on this list. Now, the Chargers made the playoffs last year, and I think they landed in the number 5 spot. Okay, but the Chargers is one of those teams that get buzz every year. Every year is the Chargers' year, and we hear about Justin Herbert and how he could potentially be an MVP candidate, and we hear about his arm and his talent and his mobility, and how the Chargers have improved their line and their defense. And we hear all these things about the Chargers, and every year they wet the bed. Okay, and so could the Chargers make the playoffs? Maybe, but they're in the category of those other guys, because I don't think they have a chance to win the Super Bowl at all. And I'm just not going to qualify them to put them even in the pretender category. Okay, because a lot of times the Chargers are just a team of hype. So they go on those other guys. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that they don't have a real chance to contend for a championship. I think we saw a lot of good things from Kenny Pickett last year. The Steelers, added some good pieces in free agency. They have a solid wide receiving corps. They have a solid offensive line, and so they have a lot of things that are good. But I don't remember a time when a second-year quarterback put a team in contender status. I don't think Kenny Pickett is going to do that for them this year. And so I'm not even going to put them in the pretender category. Not right now, because they didn't even make the playoffs last year. So they may make the playoffs in 2023. But again, to be in those other categories, you had to be a playoff team. All right. So the Steelers are on the list of those other guys. They're going to get a lot of buzz. But that's the reason why they go on this list, because that buzz won't turn into real contention. Right. The Tennessee Titans. Now, they did not make the playoffs last year, but they are a team that's always, fighting for the AFC South. I think Tennessee is in a real rebuilding situation. I think that they selected Malik Willis in the draft last year in hopes that he could take over at some point for Ryan Tannehill. That did not happen. He looked like he wasn't ready. Ryan Tannehill has been on a decline for the last couple of years, and the Tennessee Titans were even discussing, or at least there were some rumors, let me say it that way, they were discussing moving on from Derrick Henry. So when you get rid of the face of your franchise, or let me say it this way, when you may be rumored to get rid of your franchise guy, right? Then that lets me know that I can't take you serious as a contender. You're not in contention. And I think Jacksonville has fully taken hold of that AFC South, at least for a couple of years. All right. So those are those other guys' lists. Now, there are certainly other teams that could go on here, but teams that made big improvements like the Cleveland Browns, I'm not going to put them on those other guys' list, because they certainly have a potential to make a huge leap this year. Okay. But they don't get they're not going to get put on this list just for the sake of respect for what they've done. The New York Jets, we know that they landed Aaron Rodgers last year. They're going to get a lot of buzz, a lot of hype, but I can't put them on this list right here, because I think that they could make a huge leap in 2023. Okay. So I just went with teams that always are talked about, this is their year, making the playoffs, that kind of thing. All right. And like I said, you guys may have some other teams, and I certainly welcome you guys to send those in, or either put them in the comment section. Okay. Let's move now to pretenders. Okay. And the first team up is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Okay. Now, Buffalo has been a team that's kind of consistently been talked about as a contender. Every year, it's their year. Oh, Josh Allen, he's going to be the MVP candidate. He can throw the ball all over the field, and Stephon Diggs, and the defense, and good coaching, and all these kind of things. But the fact of the matter is, they come up short every year. Okay. So I'm not buying the hype that's going to come this year. I'm not. So I'm putting them squarely on the pretender list. Okay. And part of that reason why, yeah, they added, a few good pieces in free agency, but they lost their Pro Bowl linebacker, Edmonds. Okay. They lost kind of a possession receiver in McKenzie. And they just didn't do enough, to me, to offset those losses. They added safety Taylor Rapp, which could be certainly a bonus. But at this point, it's kind of better to show me than owe me. And so I'm just not going to fall for that Buffalo Bills trick this year. And Bills Mafia, please don't come for me. You know what I'm saying? This is not an assault on Buffalo as a franchise. It's not an assault on the fan base. You guys are just a pretender. You guys have been for the last couple of years. Every time there is some hype, every time that there is a chance for you guys to really get over the hump, you don't. And that's just the truth. You don't get over the hump. And so you guys may say, well, the Baltimore Ravens hadn't got over the hump. Yes, you're right. Okay, you're right about that. But I'm not fooling myself to think that we are in contender status, and you shouldn't fool yourself to think you're in contender status. Yes, you have a top-notch quarterback. Yes, you have a #1 wide receiver. You're probably going to add some receiving talent in the draft, but this is a pre-draft assessment, and you're on the pretender list. Okay, next up, Ravens Nation. This is us. The Baltimore Ravens are a pretender for a whole lot of reasons. Okay, yeah, we had some good additions. We added Odell Beckham and Nelson Aguilar. Okay, and that's good. You know, that's good. But we had some big losses. We lost Ben Powers, you know, Josh Oliver, who made some big plays for us last year. He left. We lost Calais Campbell, you know, which is, you know, a leader of the defense who also was a starter. We also lost Clark, who was a starter on defense and kind of a leader. And so I think leadership is big for a team. But the most notable reason why the Baltimore Ravens are a pretender is because they have yet to sign their franchise quarterback. Okay. And you can't be taken seriously as a contender if you don't have that kind of guy at quarterback. And I'm not specifically talking about Lamar Jackson, meaning him as the guy. I'm saying if you don't have a Pro Bowl type quarterback, you're not going to be a contender. That's just a fact. So we fall squarely, just like the Buffalo Bills, on the pretender category. You know, there's been a lot of news around us. There's been a lot of controversy around us. But the fact of the matter is we are a pretender. And in fact, I thought about putting us on those other guys' list, but we actually made the playoffs with Tyler Huntley as the backup. Okay. And I'm not fooling myself to think, well, we could make the playoffs and be in contention for a Super Bowl with Tyler Huntley. I'm not going to fool myself like that. I'm not going to put that out there to the Ravens fan base like that. We are a pretender. And I think that if I'm honest enough, if Lamar Jackson was signed, I would still put us on the pretender list because there's a huge question mark at how the wide receiver room will produce in 2023. And so because we haven't done enough yet, we still have some holes to fill. Even if Lamar Jackson was signed, we would still fall on the pretender list. Okay. So Buffalo fans, calm down. Okay. I'm honest enough to say if Lamar Jackson was signed, we're still a pretender because we would still have more work to do. All right. Now let's keep moving. Well, another famous organization that we know well in as a Ravens is the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, they are on the pretender list. I told you guys in a previous video, I believe a Super Bowl window is legitimately 2 years. And especially if you make like the conference championship or you even visit the Super Bowl, I think your window is 2 years before teams come to pick your team apart. Because typically when you start winning like that, you have a lot of guys on rookie deals. Okay. And so as we see Joe Burrow is moving into position for a contract extension, his salary will go up, which will make more of their players vulnerable to be picked off in free agency simply because they won't be willing to sign those guys. Okay. The Cincinnati Bengals, they had some big additions. They had Orlando Brown, who we know well, come in free agency. They signed safety Nick Scott, which I do not think fully replaces the loss of Von Bell or Jesse Bates. I don't think Nick Scott does that. He's a decent safety, but I do not think that he replaces them. And then of course they bring in Sidney James and tight end Irv Smith. Irv Smith does not replace Hayden Hurst. He doesn't. He doesn't bring that dynamic playmaking that Hayden Hurst brought to the table. And so I think, although they filled some positions that they had open, I don't think they did enough to upgrade their roster. Like I said earlier, they lost both their starting safeties. They lost a starting corner in Eli Apple. I think he's still unsigned though. And Samaje Perine also left, who was a solid backup. So I see some significant losses for the Cincinnati Bengals. They certainly could, provide depth for those positions in the draft, but this is a pre-draft assessment. So I'm putting Cincinnati on the pretender list, right? They went to Super Bowl 2 years ago. They didn't get it done that year. They didn't get it done this past year. And we know that as guys get more expensive, other guys will have to leave. And I think that's what happened with Jesse Bates and Von Bell. And I don't think we can speak enough of how much of a loss those two guys will be to the middle of that secondary. Okay. And so I think that they're pretenders. Yes, they have a Pro Bowl quarterback in what's that guy's name? Joe Burrow for sure. And I think Orlando Brown is an upgrade at left tackle. But the truth is, because Orlando Brown is so big and powerful, sometimes he can get beat with speed off of the edge, which certainly could make Joe Burrow a little more vulnerable. But he's still an upgrade over what they had. So that is a plus, but I don't think he's enough to offset some of the holes that they have. And I don't think that you can wait on rookies to kind of put them in position to really be contenders. So pre-draft, they are pretenders, all right? The Jacksonville Jaguars, who also made the playoffs last year, I think they are pretenders. They made a big push last year. They took over the AFC South. I think they will remain in that perch for a number of years because I think Indianapolis has a huge question at quarterback, and they're certainly probably going to go with a rookie. Tennessee, not really sure where they're headed. And then Houston has a huge question mark at the quarterback position as well. So so Jacksonville has their quarterback position figured out. They're certainly going to have an addition of Calvin Ridley this year, who is certainly a #1 talent for sure. And I think that with his addition, with what they did last year, I think that they certainly can hold position at the top of the AFC South, but they're not contenders. So they're on the pretender list. And I think part of that is that they don't have any real veteran leadership. Marvin Jones was probably their veteran leader. And of course, he's gone. Their defense is young. And so I think Trevor Lawrence is a good leader, but I don't know what he's going to be or do when times get tough and you have to step in front of your team and say, follow me. Does he have that potential? Yes. Will he? I don't know. And so I don't think they're ready right now. So they have to be on the pretender list. All right. Contenders. So of course we know contenders have to be a playoff team, just like the pretenders list was. And so they have to have their quarterback in place. I said a top 12 quarterback, basically. And then they have to have maintained their core free agents. So let's see who we got. Okay, on the list is the Miami Dolphins. Okay, not the top of the list, but they are on the contender list. And here's why. When Tua Tagovailoa is healthy at quarterback, he is a top 12 guy. Okay, when you consider, we have to be honest, when you consider his accuracy, his ball placement, yeah, he might not be able to throw the ball deep, but he was able to lead a high-powered offense in a real productive way until injuries started to happen. Due to Tua being healthy, I think that the Dolphins will do some things to offer a little more protection for him. I think they may move the pocket a little more. They may, take those speedy wide receivers and make them maybe shorten up their routes so everything is not so long and downfield. But I certainly think that if he's healthy, he is a top 12 guy, okay? Because he can certainly spin the ball and put it where it needs to go. We certainly saw that last year before injuries started to happen, okay? So that's number one. Number two, the reason why I have the Miami Dolphins as a contender is because of their upgrades, okay? They went out and got Jalen Ramsey. Okay. And this is what a team is supposed to do when your quarterback is on a rookie deal. You're supposed to go all in. And I think they have certainly done that. Okay. They went out and got Jalen Ramsey. And so he still has the ability to lock up one side of the field. Okay. Now he's approaching 30 if he's not already 30, but he's still long. He still has speed and he still has great coverage skill. So he is certainly an upgrade. And with his partner in crime on the other side, Xavier Howard, I think they form probably the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Okay. They added Chosen Anderson, formerly known as Robbie Anderson. And we may not think that he's a big addition, but the fact of the matter is he's 6'3" and he still has great deep speed. And so when you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and you add this guy with his kind of speed um, to that makes that offense potentially even more explosive. So you can't underestimate what he may bring to the table. They added David Long Jr., which upgrades that linebacker position. Okay, um, and so when you really think about what they've done, they've upgraded positions that were not that bad. They made them even better, right? And so now when they field an offense, Tua has another weapon, okay, along with the guys he already has, which makes that offense elite. Okay. They retained both their running backs. All right. And so they have little work to do in the NFL draft. We know they locked up Armstead last year and put him at the left tackle position. They're probably going to add some offensive line pieces, but of course, there's still a pre-draft assessment. And so I think that all the draft will do is add depth, but they're already going to field a team that really has no holes offensively or defensively because they did their work in the offseason. Okay. Uh, they had I guess the biggest loss they had was Mike Gesicki. Okay. And but I think they wasn't using him anyway, so I'm not sure how much of a loss he will actually be. Okay, and so for all the reasons I stated, is the reason why I have Miami Dolphins on the contender list. I think they certainly have an offense that can compete with anybody in the AFC East, and I think that's what they have to do first. They'll have to win the AFC East, but I certainly think that that's doable. Okay. Uh, and the reason why is because, um, I think that they have firepower to overtake a Buffalo. Uh, because imagine with that kind of elite speed, all it takes is a 70-yard touchdown, which they have the potential to do. Think about all the explosive plays they had last year against the Baltimore Ravens when Tua was healthy. And so I think that they have the potential to be, dominant offensively. And with the upgrade of Jalen Ramsey at the cornerback position, that makes the defensive front better only because now your cornerbacks can hold up in coverage, which allows your pass rushers to get there. And this will be Chubb's second year at that edge position, which he should be better in. So I definitely got Miami as a contender. If nothing more than their explosiveness on offense and the upgrade of Jalen Ramsey. All right. The Kansas City Chiefs is the number one contender in the AFC. Okay. Yeah, they had some. We deal with their losses first. Yeah, they had a lot of losses. They lost the starting safety. They lost their left tackle in Orlando Brown. Um, and the one Thornhill is that safety's name. Frank Clark, they moved on from. Chad Henne, the backup quarterback, retired. But you know, if he wasn't really playing a whole lot, then it's not that big of a loss. I think a big loss would be Juju Smith-Schuster, for sure. But when you look at who they added, the offensive tackle, they added Jawan Taylor, who is an upgrade over Orlando Brown, and they paid him as such. Um, so I think that the loss of Orlando Brown has already been offset. Uh, they added Richie James, who is a big wide receiver, who can kind of do some of the same things as a Juju Smith-Schuster. He's not Juju, but he could do some of the same things. uh, they added the defensive end out of San Francisco. I can't pronounce his name, but he's a solid defender. They added Mike Edwards, a safety, to replace Thornhill. So basically, what they've done is they've basically just maintained their same level of productivity with their replacements with who they brought in. So they're basically going to field the same team, and they have that guy at quarterback, and they have a genius in play calling and offense construction in Andy Reid. And I know they lost Eric Bieniemy, which may be the biggest loss, but we'll see what Andy Reid does offensively without Eric Bieniemy, or if he was the brains behind the offense, being Andy Reid in the first place. And so the fact of the matter is, the Kansas City Chiefs are basically going to field a very similar team, and they have all their draft capital. So all the draft is going to do is add depth, okay? And so the Chiefs are number one. And in the words of Ric Flair, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. And at this point, they're the reigning champs, and that's undeniable. So until somebody knocks them off, Kansas City is at the top of the mountain. The Miami Dolphins, because of the work they've done in the offseason, is the other contender. And I think that all the other teams that I referenced are pretenders. By all means, please don't get super upset and say, Boulanger, you done lost your mind. You don't know what you're talking about. Everything I've told you is true. The losses, the additions, uh, the team, the team that they will field next year is basically right here, especially in a pre-draft context. I don't see any big moves being made pre-draft as far as adding a free agent. There's a lot of good depth still left at free agency, but I don't think any moves are going to be made. And so this is the list. By all means, submit who you guys think. I'm super, super excited to see what you guys bring to the table. And so that's my take. Contenders, pretenders, and those other guys. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.